PRX.
Friends beyond the binary, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, space, these are the voyages of a meandering, enterprising man that found sleep, I didn't find sleep enterprising, and I didn't realize I was embarking on a sleep enterprise. I mean, it was always like enterprise, it was like, there's another enterprise that used to be when you couldn't do everything through the app, and you could do a setting like, please leave me alone, no upgrades, no upgrades, no upgrades. That's like what my bedtime used to be like renting a car in the aughts or even the tens. I don't know. I haven't done it lately, so I don't know what it's like. But the last few times I just did it on the app. So I said, oh, and then I just said it over. Oh, no, it's all in the app. Oh, no, nope, it's all in the app. Nope. I guess it's opportunity for assertiveness. None of that has, I don't even know why I'm on that topic. This is the Starship Enterprise is something we'll refer to way later in the show. But it's time for Sleep With Me, a podcast that's here to keep you company while you fall asleep, to take your mind off stuff, to be your friend in the deep, dark night, because you deserve a good night's sleep. The show is very different. It does take a few tries to get used to, but I'm so glad you're here. We're going to do some support for the show. Then there'll be a long, meandering intro to ease you into bedtime. And then we'll start talking about an episode of Star Trek TNG. Be more like a bedtime story, though, if you don't watch the show or you're not familiar with it. And I think that's it. What else? I can't remember. I can't remember even how I start my own podcast. I'm so glad you're here. I think that's I just think I go to the next thing, right? I'm all by myself, so I don't know. I'm waiting for somebody. But yeah, it's time for Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. And these sponsors are how we keep the show coming out for free twice a week. Thanks, everybody. Hey, everybody, Scoots. Don't forget the most comfortable way to listen to Sleep With Me is on sleep phones. They have a wired version and two different wireless versions, and you could get a Sleep With Me branded one. So don't forget to use our link. That's the only way to get the Sleep With Me versions of the sleep phones is at sleepwithmepodcast.com/sleepphones. Check them out. There's a couple different cute little choices made by a friend of Ashley. You got to get yourself some sleep phones. Get over there. Check it out. Not only are sleep phones great to sleep in, especially when you're traveling, they're also terrific for running. So get over there, sleepwithmepodcast.com/sleepphones, and use Sleep With Me to get $5 off your order. That's Sleep With Me to get $5 off your order. And you can only get the Sleep With Me versions using that link, sleepwithmepodcast.com/sleepphones. Thanks, everybody. All right, everybody, it is time to talk about the bed I sleep in, the mattress I love. It's time to talk about Helix Sleep. But while, I love my Helix Dusk Luxe, it's more about you, like taking that quiz, helixsleep.com/sleep, because I love, I love my bed. You should be in a bed you love as much as I love my mattress. And you might say, Helix Sleep. Well, Helix Sleep is a premium mattress brand that provides tailored mattresses based on your unique sleep preferences. The Helix lineup has 14 unique mattresses, including a collection of luxury models, a mattress for big and tall sleepers, even a mattress for kids. And that's what I mean. You take that quiz so that you know which Helix mattress works best for you and your body. It takes 2 minutes to find your perfect mattress. That mattress will be shipped right to your door free of charge. You get to try out your Helix in your home. So if you decide it's not the best fit, you're welcome to return it for a full refund. Everybody's unique. Everybody sleeps different. I sleep on my side. I sleep on my stomach. I sleep hot. But you probably sleep different than that. And that's why Helix has several different mattress models to choose from, each designed for specific sleep positions and feel preferences. And when I took the Helix quiz, I got matched with that Helix Dusk. I picked the Dusk Luxe. And not only is it the best mattress I've slept on, but it comes straight to your door. Setting it up is fast, easy. You take it out of the box, you open it up, you put it on your base, and you're good to go. Helix mattresses are American-made, come with a 10 or 15-year warranty warranty depending on the model. Remember, you get to try it out for 100 nights risk-free. If you don't love it, I mean, I know you will, but if you don't, they'll pick it up for you, give you a full refund. So here's what you need to do. Go to helixsleep.com/sleep because Helix is offering up to 20% off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners. Go to helixsleep.com/sleep. This is the best offer yet. It won't last long. With Helix, better sleep starts now. Thanks, everybody. All right, everybody, it is time to talk about the Sleepy Supporter Zone. The one part of the podcast I need you to hear is where I pop my peas. If you please, I thank the listeners who support the sponsors. That's how we're here free choice week for you, is the listeners who support the sponsors, like Julie, who supported Air Doctor. And again, when you support a sponsor, please use our link or our promo code. That's how they know. Otherwise, reach out to them directly and let them know. But I want to thank Julie, who supported Air Doctor. Got an Air Doctor. I got one in my room running right now. If you support a sponsor, fill out tag them on social media, send them a letter, give them a call, and then let me know about it. Tag me on social media or fill out the form at sleepwithmepodcast.com/sponsors. And I'll send you a thank you video if you fill out that form because I literally couldn't, I love it. So thank you so much, Julie, for supporting the sponsors. The next part of the Sleepy Supporter Zone is you getting the support you need right now. There's links to resources, including international resources you could use right now in our show notes. It's about being a part of a community, being a part of positive change, not just saying Black Lives Matter, not just saying stop AAPI hate, not just saying support Ukraine, but taking action and learning more. There's links to resources where you could do that, again, right now in our show notes. And one of the things we're doing is building hygiene kits and garnering support for people experiencing homelessness and particularly the Midnight Mission in Los Angeles. And if you want to learn more, use the links in our show notes. If you want to be a part of that, use the links in our show notes. And thank you so much. I couldn't do it without all you. Oh, Mystery Bard, a lot of people help out on the show. Who are they?
Posty poster son sounds like an earful. Wrote the theme song. Edits episodes. Carl W. the legend. Also edits episodes. Ashley, Kenny, Scotty, Jennifer. Runner. Eric and the team at Astound are on the website. I am the Mystery Bard. I do the lullabies, yeah. I do commissions at JonathanMann.net. I'll write a song for you. Any reason at all. You can tell me the story and I'll make it personal. You see the kindness shine straight on through when the listeners form their own Facebook group. Keith, Stacy, Sarah, Julie, and Jennifer. These are your moderators. Get support dear Scooter on Patreon. Buy the merch and support the sponsors. You can find anything you want at sleepwithmepodcast.com. And we're so proud that we could dance. Rusty Biscuit, Lois, Hannah like banana. Leah does the transcripts.
Thanks, Mystery Bard. Don't forget, get your sleep phones, sleepwithmepodcast.com/sleep phones to get those Sleep With Me branded sleep phones and use Sleep With Me to save $5. And what do you say we slow it down and get on with the show? Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you could set aside whatever's keeping you awake. It could be thoughts on your mind, thoughts you're thinking about. So thinking thoughts, you say, okay, thoughts that I'm thinking about. Or it feels, am I thinking or am I thought? I think a philosopher once said that, right? I mean, my characters are always right. Am I right? Am I written or am I being wrote? Or, and I'd say, you're about to have me be wrothed. And they say, am I written or wrote? And I say, well, definitely not. I'd say, I don't know which one means being in the process. I said, you're in the process. You're process-based. You're part of my imagination. Why are you putting me in a? Is this what they call a philosopher's conundrum? Because keep that out of bedtime too. Here's the thing at bedtime. I probably said it before. No conundrums. And another instrument, we've probably talked about it, no drums. I can't think of many reasons you'd have a drum in your bed at bedtime, or a conundrum. So I know there's a character somewhere named Conundrum. I can't, probably, is that in a Dragonlance novel? I don't know, but here's the thing. Keep all drums, percussion, anything related to percussion. I can't, I mean, part of my brain's like, what, are you going to ban triangles from bed? I'd say probably here's the thing. You could have, I don't know why you would need a triangle in bed. I'm sure that's been said before. Not many times in history has someone said this. I don't know why you need a triangle in bed. And you say, well, you've been lying on it for 20 minutes, so it's warmed up. We might as well keep it in here now. I mean, if there's non-sleeping activities, you could say, well, I like to ring a triangle, and I'd say, okay, but that's not really, podcast is related to sleep, not that other stuff. I don't know anything about that stuff. Obviously I'm like, that's great. If you feel like you're, at what point do you ring the triangle? I mean, I probably better we don't have this interview right now because it's going on within my mind. But I said, yeah, but here's the thing. Let's keep conundrums and percussion, let's just move on. Thoughts, whatever you're thinking about, because I got stuck in those ones. I said triangle, really? I was thinking more of a piccolo, but that's just because I thought that'd be funny. I realized that's not a percussion-based instrument. Here's something I think we could agree on. Keep those sand blocks out of there because that can't be good for anybody. Oh, I guess if you wanted to, please, no doing your nails in bed either. They should be in the same place as percussion instruments with a sand block. No Tibetan bowls, no egg shakers. Please, can we move? So thoughts that you're thinking about. This is then I'm in a conundrum. Now it's like an instrument-based bedtime conundrum. I'm sure there's exceptions to the rule. I agree with you, but I don't have time to go through every exception right now because I'm trying to make a sleep podcast, even though this is conducive to a sleep podcast. So I spent a little bit of time with you. I think we could generally agree that conundrums, drums, almost everything related to percussion, unless you found some reasonable exception, again, don't put them in bed or don't store your percussion instruments in bed. I think we can all agree on that. What did I say? Someone said, why do you have a triangle in this bed? Do you have a triangle in here? Those are all things that it just shouldn't come up. If it does, you should say, by the way, you may be surprised, but that would be, again, for other, if you get, okay, I can make an exception if you have what are those beds called? A 4-poster, a canopy bed. I still don't think it's the best idea, but, yeah, I could see a triangle up there. So you got me. We've now, can we move on? Thank you. So thoughts, it could be feelings, anything coming up for you emotionally, feelings about all that stuff, feelings about your thoughts. I'm feeling pretty amused by my thoughts, but I say, if it was because now it's not bedtime, but if it suddenly said, hey, why don't we come up with a list of exceptions to your percussion-based bedtime rules? I'd say, why don't you just ask that chat bot? Could you just do that and not? How about that? You know what would be great for bedtime? If you say, okay, there's areas people say, please keep AI out of it. Keep it. But I would say this would be counterintuitive. And we say, don't keep AI out of the bedroom. And you'd say, Scoots, holy cow, you're making, and I say, no. What we do is a handoff. You say, hey, let me turn my thoughts over to this AI chatbot while I try to go, and then the AI chatbot could engage. That's kind of what I do. What I was imagining, you'd say, okay, could you just go over these lists with this piece of AI about whatever piccolos, why don't you ask the chatbot if anyone's ever pickled piccolo or, whatever it is, because I'm trying to go to sleep. So it could be thoughts, could be feelings, emotions from the past, the present, the future that are just there. It could be physical sensations, changes in time or temperature, routine, whatever's going on, whatever's keeping you awake. I'm here to try to help with that. And the things you need to know is, one, you deserve a good night's sleep. If you were going to stop listening, you may have already stopped listening before. You just say, my goodness, I never thought I'd hear a triangle associated with such things. And I'd say that was all, that's all your own inference. Whoa, boy. I was just talking about, okay, you got me. Anyway, sorry, but you still deserve a good night's sleep, even if you're like, oh my gosh, bagosh. Or gosh, bagosh. And maybe some of you are like, by the way, I didn't listen to anything you said until you, you wouldn't believe this, Scoots, but I'm a pickle carver. Similar to whittling? Yeah, I'm a pickle carver. Is this made up in my, there's a part, okay, hold on. I don't need to get so meta here, but there's a personality in my imagination whose hobby it is to carve pickles that I'm just meeting for the first time. And you carve pickles, yes. And you weren't listening to anything I was saying until you said pickling a piccolo. Okay. And I can give you about 8 more seconds, but can you tell me more? I haven't pickled a piccolo, but I've carved a piccolo out of a pickle. Wow, that's that's really cool. I mean, I'm not even kidding. If you actually could do that, I mean, I guess what do you wear, gloves while you, or you play it and then you could eat it? I mean, I guess that could be a thing. Edible pickle instruments. I think I had a piccolo before. Didn't they used to give those away in like children's meals or breakfast cereal? This was carved from actual piccolo. What would you call, would you call that a cuke wind instead of a woodwind? You maybe need to brainstorm that. You're right. A dill wind. How about that? Is it a dill wind? Okay. So you deserve a good night's sleep if you're still listening. Or if you're the pickle carver within me. That's another chapter in my autobiography. Chapter 182B, The Pickle Carver Within Me. Or The Tale of the Pickle Carver. I guess I have to do an episode about that. So, surprise if you were listening that this won't be about Star Trek The Next Generation, because it doesn't get, I don't know. So, okay, thoughts, feelings. Oh, you deserve a good night's sleep. Whether you listen to this podcast or not. If you definitely check out soon, sleepwithmepodcast.com/no thank you has other sleepy podcasts on there. But let's be honest, where are you going to hear this kind of barely this material that is riveting for seconds, and then you realize you say, this is nonsensical riveting in a nonsensical way, but not riveting. But you say, I won't remember this tomorrow. This is really what a lot of listeners say. They say to themselves, I wish I would remember this tomorrow, but I won't. That's what, put it on a pillow. You're a hardcore sleep with me listener when you say, I'd like to remember the pick, that someone pickled a pick, whatever he said, but I don't think I will. But so you deserve a good night's sleep because you deserve a bedtime that you don't have to dread, that you can feel neutral about or look forward to, and to get the rest you need and you deserve so your life is more manageable. And then eventually, if you get the rest you need, whether it's from this podcast or something at sleepwithmepodcast.com/no thank you or something else you find out there, when you're getting the rest you need, your life, you could be in a position where you could be flourishing. And whether your life's more manageable or you're flourishing, that means your world's a better place to be in, and that's important. It's also important because all the stuff that I'm talking about that doesn't barely make any sense, that's kind of stuff that goes through my brain all day long. But particularly at bedtime, instead of being about pickles and pickle carvers with big smiles on their faces that seem pretty friendly, it takes on a different tone. And it's a tone like the deep, dark night. I'm not going to point out any more, but you could probably relate to how it feels when it's not it's more of like, it's not like a pickle poker, like someone poking me with a pickle to make a point. Not Peter Piper, but maybe, I don't know. But I say, please don't poke me with the pickle, Paul and Peter and Penelope and Phoebe. Even though that doesn't have as good alliteration, please don't poke me with any pickles, please. Properly. Your pickle, don't point your pickle at me. Things you never hear anywhere else, but at bedtime it gets more intense. And I know how it feels in the deep, dark night. And while I might not know exactly what you're going through, I could probably relate to it, or someone else can. So that's why I make the show. What I'll do is I'll send my voice across the deep, dark night. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones, pointless meanders, and superfluous tangents, which you've kind of already witnessed. The show goes off the rails, and then I forget what I was even talking about. Then I repeat myself. Then I try to figure out how to get so lost. And then I say, oh, well, I'm not really lost. I'm just wandering in a wilderness of my mind. So why don't you come along with me? We'll see what else we see. So those are superfluous tangents and pointless meanders. Creaky dulcet tones is just my voice isn't traditionally soothing, but it's here to keep you company. And then what else do I, a couple other things you need to know that like this podcast just isn't for everybody, but for the people that listen on a regular basis, it takes 2 or 3 tries to get used to. Because one, if you tried finding other stuff to put you to sleep, you've probably been through a lot of stuff that hasn't worked or has not been effective or worked for a few times and never worked again. So just give the show a few tries, see how it goes. That's what, like, I'm not kidding when I say probably 1 million people have told me that. I didn't like you at first, or I didn't get it, and then I listened 2 or 3 times, and now I'm paying for the podcast because I love it so much. I mean, where does it happen in your real life? You say, well, I didn't really like you very much. I mean, it happens in rom-coms. Like, oh, every Hugh Grant movie. Okay, other than to characters played by Hugh Grant, doesn't happen a lot where they say, I have strong feelings not good about you, but now I listen on a regular basis. A couple of reasons that turns out to be true is like, one, this is a podcast you don't really listen to. You just kind of barely listen. Like something out of focus or like clouds, you're kind of like, well, I'm not sure what that looks like, but it kind of looks like this. This is a podcast that's kind of meant to be a little bit more than background noise. You kind of engage with it, but you're not paying attention. It kind of makes sense, but it doesn't totally make sense. But if you need company or you can't fall asleep or you need a break during the day, you know that I'm here the whole time keeping you company. So you could listen, but you don't need to listen. So it's a podcast you just kind of barely listen to. It's also a podcast I've been making, as far as I know, it's the first sleep podcast. And I started the show in 2013. But this is a sleep podcast that doesn't put you to sleep. I'm here to keep you company while you fall asleep, to take your mind off of stuff and to be your friend in the deep, dark night. To be your companion, your boar bay, your boar sib, your boar bud, your boar burr, your neighbor, your boar friend, your boar bud, your boar bestie. I'm your friend. You call and you say, just talk to me, but I'm not going to listen to you. You know, just use a generally soothing voice. So that's, it's, those are 2 things that take some getting used to, right? You say, wait, this podcast already started, but it's been going for 20 minutes, but it hasn't gone anywhere. When do you do the count? When do the Tibetan bells start? And I'd say, well, are you here for the rule? If there's going to be any music, it'll be the silent sound of a piccolo player playing a pickled pickle. Also, that's primarily a pickle, but also plausibly a piccolo. Presently, you said somebody out there said preposterous, and they just bailed off the show, I bet. But so, yes, podcast you don't really listen to, doesn't really put you to sleep. Also, structurally, that's another thing that can cause some people a little aggravation. So let me just explain to you the structure of the show. Show starts off with a greeting, friends be in the binary, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Then I tried to set up an episode of TNG, but really we're going to talk about Pickle. I don't know what we'll talk about, but that is so you feel seen and welcome. You say, I could check this show out. I'm not sure about it, but I'll check it out. Then there's support for the show. So the podcast can be free twice a week. And then there's support for listeners and communities around the show. And then there's the intro. Now, the intro is not really meant to put you to sleep. It could put you to sleep. But what the intro is really meant to do is ease you into bedtime. So some people are in bed, falling asleep. Some people are getting comfortable. But a lot of listeners, it's part of their bedtime routine. So maybe they're getting prepped for bed. Maybe they're doing some other chill activity or winding down in some way. And that's just been what's shown to work, is to ease you into bedtime. So that's what the intro does. And then again, after the intro is support for the show. And again, I couldn't, like that's what lets us put the show out for free twice a week. Then there'll be our story. It was scheduled to be a TNG story, but don't worry. We'll come up with a story about whatever, Pickle Carver. It's cool. I mean, talk about a cool, I mean, for me, it's cool. Because I don't have those. It's interesting that some sort of sub-personality inside me has a hobby that I would never have. I'd say there's no way I don't have that attention to detail to carve pickles as a hobby. Well, it seems pretty, I mean, I'd like, so we'll find out more about the pickle carver. I have no idea where that'll go. And then, so that's a story. Then at the end is some thank yous and good nights. Now, you could change around how you listen, but if you listen that way at first, and you say, well, I don't like the sponsors and stuff, then you could support the show and get ad-free shows. Or you say, well, I don't mind that, but I like to set a sleep timer. Oh, you know what? I found the story-only episodes work for me. Or you know what? I just like listening to the show, or I listen all night long. Or maybe I start the show at 20 minutes in. You'll find your way. I'm so glad you're here, really, because we're together in this. It might not feel that way, and it might only be in a strange digital way we're doing it, but the most important part of the show is you knowing, we know it sucks in the deep, dark night, and it can feel lonely. And there is someone else listening right now. So, you know, even though, you know what I mean? That's what's important. Because we've all been there, and it's not easy. So I'm so glad you're here. I really hope the podcast can help you out. I really appreciate you coming by. I yearn and I strive. I really hope I can help you fall asleep. And here's a couple of ways we're able to do it for you for free twice a week. Sleep With Me is brought to you by Progressive. Most of you aren't just listening right now. You're driving, cleaning, and even exercising. But what if you could be saving money by switching to Progressive? Drivers who save by switching save nearly $700 on average. And auto customers qualify for an average of 7 discounts. Multitask right now. Quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $698 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2021 and May 2022. Potential savings will vary. Discounts not available in all states and situations. Oh boy, everybody. This is a tale, one of these tales that's never been told. And it's called The Pickle Carver, and it's a tale it actually has never been told till tonight, so you're in for a treat. And you may raise your hand and say, I don't know, can you consider a pickle a treat? And I would say, okay, one, I agree with your skepticism. So let me just say that right up front. I'm not trying to diffuse your skepticism or objection to a pickle being a treat. But I would say, let's just run through a couple of things. One, I guess a question for you to answer would be, do treats have to be sweet? And I guess that would help create your answer. But I would say one other quick observation is that at least in Disneyland and Disney World probably, and probably Universal and other theme parks, you can buy a pickle by itself. Like you can get an individual pickle, or you can be served a pickle as part of your meal. But there's stands, at least in Disneyland, where you could buy a pickle. And I'd say, well, and what else is for sale there? Other treats. And then you could say, well, they also sell fruit salad or whatever. I'd say, okay, well, is that a treat? So then I'd say, okay, at least we're in the wheelhouse of diffuse. If you say it's not a treat, then you'd say probably you couldn't say fruit salad's a treat either. So anyway, just a thingamajig that I don't. Oh, so this is a tale never told. The Pickle Carver has nothing to do with that stuff. But let's see. So once upon a time, there was a person, and their name was Gila. We'll say Gila. Gila. And I think it's a Gila, Gilla. And Gila lived in the big city, and every day Gila would go outside to play. This was like within a few block area of the apartment building where Gila lived. She could go play as she wished. And she would usually go play with other children in the neighborhood, or if not, just walk around. And they had a balcony on their apartment, which was about halfway up a apartment building. And usually her grandmother would sit out there and not keep an eye on her. But it was a different time, right? I don't know. It was a time like where someone would discover pickle carving, maybe. So then what happened was, or other things Gila did. Let's get to that. So this was actually, I don't know if it was the 80s, the 90s, or the 70s, or the aughts, or the 10s. But they had, they even had not every neighborhood, but there was city pools in this big city. And I guess this was there was a pretty decent budget for these pools because they were used by residents of the city. And so the pool had changing rooms, snack bar, tables, lifeguards, swimming lessons, everything you'd want in a city pool. Not this particular pool, but even musical interludes. And one thing Gila always wondered was why, when there was a summer storm, did we always have to get out of the pool? And Gila asked one time, and grandmother said, so you don't, because it's raining, don't want you to catch a cold while you're in the pool. And Gila said, we don't always have to get out of the pool when it's raining. I thought it was related to the thunder or the lightning. And the grandmother said, here, drink some water, because you do want to stay wet on the inside. And Gila said, okay. But then the time came where Gila got a little bit older, and Gila was still playing in the neighborhoods and stuff like that. But there came this time where there was these summer storms, and the pool was closed every day, and it was really raining and windy and thunder and lightning kind of stuff for multiple days, right? And then the power went out, and nothing, these are all things that everybody was prepared for, at least at Gila's building. But most of the neighborhood was prepared for this because this was a common occurrence. But the thing was that because it was raining, Gila spent a lot of time at home, and Gila was the only child. And so it was a bit boring, especially after the sun set. But even during the day, it was usually it was storming. So it was pretty dark in the apartment. Apartment wasn't that big, no power. And usually sometimes during the weekdays, because Gila was off from school, just grandmother was there. So it was a bit dull. And, Gila would read. And actually, all the adults in her life was okay, well, let's schedule out your day if you're going to be so bored during this stormy season. And don't forget to drink ice water. But you could do reading. You could do some indoor exercise or, rompus, play with other kids in the building. There was a couple scheduled activities, but because it was indoors, they said, now go back, please, let's go back to your own apartments now. And, but, usually all that would peter out. So there'd be a lull. And what the Gila's family is trying to do is make sure there was a cure for that that the lull didn't hit like right when they got home from work because, they were tired from, they just didn't want, they said, okay, let's be proactive about this. So there's not an inflated level of tension when we get home from work or expectations, that we could be present for you, but not, also be present for the fact that we just got home from work and we're trying to decompress too. And so they said, okay, so they had ideas, but they said, why don't you come up with a hobby? And Gila said, well, tell me. And they said, well, coloring books is a past, that could be a hobby. But, drawing, that could be a hobby. And Gila said, really? There's a difference between coloring books and drawing. And they said, Gila, you're getting, they said, some sort of other activity that may be slightly like school, but different than school because you enjoy it. But you're also you're a little bit, it's a little bit challenging. And Gila said, so I'm looking for something that's outside of my comfort zone, that's a hobby, that takes some skill, but is pleasurable and probably process-based like you always teach me, parents. And they said, great idea. So why don't you, we could go to the library, you could look up, we could go through the different, the parents said, we don't know the Dewey Decimal System off the top of our head, though we should because we were both previously employed by libraries. So it's slightly humbling that we don't know this off the top of our head because we don't know if it's the 900s or the 200s or the 700s. But we could go walk through the art section, look through some art books. Doesn't have to be art. There's a hobby section. So Gila said, shouldn't we just start at the hobby section? And they said, as you wish, Gila. And then they said, grandmother will take you tomorrow. And on the way there to the library, they looked at another one of grandmother's hobbies. I guess you could I don't know if you could call it a hobby. And Gila went through this. Was they did have 99. I don't know what they called 99-cent stores at this particular period in time, and they may not have been known as that. But maybe those were 5 and dime. I don't think it was post 5 and dime. I'm not sure if it was still 99 cents. I've been in a 99-cent store in the 90s at least. So it could have been the 90s. I don't know. I can't say for sure I've been in a 99-cent store in the 80s. But, just in case you're trying to say you're raising strong objections. I don't know why you would, right? But so, where were we? I'm lost. So Gila and the grandmother would like to go through the 99-cent store and not do window shopping, but kind of viewing. And then say, okay, let's pick something out that you want, Gila. And then we'll do something to earn it on the way to the library or the way back. And then you can spend it. And this was one of the positive growth opportunities that grandmother offered. Another one of her things was she'd pay Gila $1.07 because that's how much stuff at the 99-cent store cost with sales tax at this particular time in this particular city, in this particular story. That's the cost. So whatever that is, I don't know. It's around over 7%, or maybe 8%. I don't know what it was. Those are all the taxes that would be applied to your purchase at a 99-cent store, just in case you're wondering where I got that number from. And on this particular trip, Gila tried on a bunch of sunglasses and said, I really have my heart set on sunglasses, and did a lot of that. But also they went through all the other aisles. But Gila was like, I'm going to go, can I go back? And Grandma said, no, let's walk to the store. Then you can look at the sunglasses again. Then we'll go to the library. And we'll look through some books. Now, for some reason, so then they walked through the store again, and then they looked at the sunglasses again. Then they walked to the store. Oh, did I say the growth opportunity? I think I forgot that part. So the grandmother would pay her $1.07. Oh, yeah, I got distracted by the sales tax for doing a kind act, finding someone who we could do something kind to. We get paid $1.07. Well, actually in credit because she didn't actually she wouldn't give the money to Gila. But at this point, it was good for a pair of sunglasses. So Gila was on the lookout for anything, but she didn't actually they didn't really encounter anybody that had a real, could have used some sort of assistance or kindness or whatever. And Gila even tried to slow down at the doors of the library to wait to see if she could open the door or close the door for anybody, but no. So then she went into the library, and for some reason, grandmother started off with a Tudor, I don't know if that's correct, architecture. And they spent a lot of time looking at those books. Then they went to I don't know if it was electricity, but the next book Gila looked through had to do with television antennas. And I don't know if it was a repair, because they picked up different books. So then those were the first two books she went through. And Gila said, okay, well, two things I'm not interested in. Then there's a third book about recreational vehicles, RVs, not mobile. Well, mobile. I don't know. Mobile home is different than an RV, right? And like a picture, not a picture book, but a book with a lot of pictures. And Gila said, "Oh boy, I like this. Look at these people. Or look at these locations. And this is amazing. I think I would like this to be my hobby, grandmother. And I'd like to check this book out. It's not a reference book, but I'm going to reference it for my hobby." And grandmother said, okay, well, you could talk. That's not the kind of hobby we have. The kind of hobby I was thinking, and maybe your parents were thinking, is something you could get for $1.07. Or, accumulation of those. She said, remember we walked through the balloons, the ribbons, the art supplies, the glues, the wooden pieces, the little glass things, cleaning supplies. Maybe start your own business, and then you can get an RV. But she said, I don't know if an RV is a hobby. And then Gila, she went to the index of the book and she looked up hobby and was hobbyists, recreational vehicle hobbyists. And they had a whole chapter about, so she said, okay, well, I see here. So whatever, they checked that. That was one of the books they decided to check out. The next section they went to was, I think, I don't know what exactly the section of the library was. This is all nonfiction, by the way. And I mean, talk about great rainy day activity, but it was a book about hair curlers. And Gila said, yeah, that's probably not for me. I don't know if it was a history. I would love to have my hands on that book now as a sleep pot, a history of hair curlers. So that one didn't work. Then there was one about costuming, and this one also sounded very interesting. It was a history of costuming within off-Broadway, something like that. So kind of like a memoir history type book. And Gila did enjoy kind of looking at the different things of plaid, just different, it was interesting. And something about it appealed to her, but not the costuming or the off-Broadway play. Then they looked through a book about radios, but it wasn't. It was about transistor radios. And again, that was kind of similar to the other TV antennas. Gila said, I like listening to the radio and music, but not for me. But then they got to something that really did get Gila's attention, which was sand sculptures. And this, again, was a pictorial of sand sculptures and sand sculpture design. And Gila's mind was blown by this. And she was showing grandmother. Grandmother was kind of sleeping most of the time. Like this was just because she knew this library is a good place to, especially with someone that's fairly responsible like Gila. And she said, Gila, I love this book. Look at this. They built this thing. It's a crab, but it's made of sand. These aren't just sand castles. They're sand sculptures. And I'd like to do this as a hobby. And Gila said, okay, well, this could be more of a past. This could be something we do because we could go out, to Brighton Beach. We could go to different places. But we do, that would be an outing. It's not something you could do at home, especially in this. You can't do, like she said, there could be a future one, but during the stormy season, we're not going to be doing a lot of sand sculpting. But I think you're onto something. And she said, look at that over there. There's somebody being trained at the reference desk. And Gila watched that too. So observational. I mean, I guess if you're going to spend 8 or 9 hours in the library, I don't know if they were there that long because they did, or maybe they left and went back. They did go to a diner and have lunch. So I guess they left and came back. Not an important part of this story. Where was, so she said, maybe you're onto something. Oh, and then she said, watch, there's someone being trained. So then Gila was watching the training going on and observing, and also imagining, if the training was a sand sculpture, it was to talk about an imagination, but she was watching the kind of face of the trainee who still seemed unsure. And the person training and then seemed nervous. And Gila said to her grandmother, that person seems nervous and they're trying to get their confidence and implement the training they're being trained. And grandmother said, well, what are they being trained on? And Gila said, helping people find books assisting patrons. And grandmother said, they could use a confidence boost, huh? And Gila said, yes. And I could use my question answered, but I don't have to have it answered. But now I'm thinking this could be, and grandmother said, go ahead. So Gila went up to the person and said, hey, hi, I need some help. And they said, okay, what can I help you with? And Gila said, I found this book, which I'm going to check out, about sand sculptures. But, with the storms and stuff, I can't go sculpting sand. And I'm looking for something similar to sculpting sand, but not the same, that I could do at home during the stormy season. And the two librarians looked at one another, and the trainer said, go ahead. She said, okay, well, we're going to use a little brainstorming technique. This is a trainee to Gila. And I said, okay, well, so you need something like sand sculpting, but that you could do at home. Where do you live? And Gila said, 44. And she said, no, what kind of dwelling? And she said, a smaller apartment. And she said, okay, me too. So I understand that. So no pot, she goes, nothing, nothing with big equipment or specialized. So probably not pottery, probably not. She goes, do you have any Play-Doh or sculpting clay? And Gila said, I'm not I don't know about that. And she said, okay, not sculpting with clay or doughs, like something you could do at home. And she said, what I just thought of is, she goes, what about whittling? And Gila said, what's whittling? And she said, well, let me show you a few books on whittling. And Gila said, okay, thank you. And then they went and got a book on whittling, right? And Gila brought that book back, and she started going through these pictures of stuff that had been whittled from wood. And she said, holy cow, look at this stuff, grandmother. Look at this. This is amazing. She goes, this is like sand sculpting, but with pieces of wood. And Gila said, Gila's grandmother said, okay, this could be your hobby, you're saying? And Gila said, yes, I want this to be my hobby. And grandmother said, well, that's a pretty sharp knife that I'm seeing in all of those. And no offense, like you'd have to take a nice knife safety course. And she goes, that's a lot of wood. We could find the wood while we go through, on our walks and stuff. But she goes, just in case we can't find a safety course, is there anything like whittling, but without a sharp knife, like that sharp, that you'd need she goes, and Gila sighed and really felt like down. And she said, holy cow. But then the librarian trainee, which probably is like librarian assistant 1, LA1, maybe LA2, hopefully for their sake, because then you are on a higher pay scale. Can only speak from experience. But so, they saw, and they said, hey, did you, what do you think of that book on whittling? Should we look at some other options? You want to go back? You want to check that out too with your sand sculpting book? In the RV book? And Gila said, yeah, I do. But, and then they went walking. And now the other librarian was watching too. So was grandmother was aware of it, but not watching. And the librarian, she said, well, I was thinking like when you were so excited about that whittling, I don't know why it reminded me of this. But she goes, I grew up in central New York, home of the great New York State Fair. And that was and Gila said, tell me more. And she said, well, I don't want to get you too excited about it because she goes, it's amazing, though. Like, there's all sorts of things. And there's a whole dairy-based section and a milk bar where you could get chocolate milk. I think nowadays you get strawberry and plain milk. And it's just 25 cents or 50 cents or something like that. And, but she goes, they have a butter sculpture. And Gila goes, really? And I don't know if this was before or after the movie. By the way, Nichols' award-winning screenplay before it was a film. The screenplay I read quite a few times became a film, Butter, about butter sculpting. But, I don't know if this was probably before it was a film and a award-winning screenplay, but it was. She did say so that, and she said butter sculpting. And she goes, "We don't have any books about butter sculpting, no." And then Gila said, "Well, tell me all about it." And then they looked for books about New York State Fair. They did find one in the reference section that did have pictures of the butter sculpting. And the trainee used their credit to make a couple photocopies of butter sculptures, because I guess then they did more reference work on. Oh no, they went into the microfiche or whatever. That's what it was. So anyway, then so this is where it gets really important, right? Then Gila had a general idea of what a butter sculpture looked like, and then checked out all those books. So she got freak photocopies or microfiche copies or both of some butter sculpting and butter sculptures, but not a lot of details. A book about whittling, a book about sand sculptures, and then a book about what was the other book about? Oh, RVs, recreational vehicles. And then they started walking back, and the grandmother said, I noticed that you did 2 kayaks today, maybe even more, because you were trying to be a good listener. But she goes, so even though one is probably only 0.5 kayaks because you benefited from it, she goes, I think it was, the door was unlocked by your first kayak of trying to ask a question outside of your comfort zone and get help. So she goes, why don't you get why don't you spend $2 plus the tax and local, she goes, you could get 2 sets of sunglasses. And Gila said, yeah, I'd like to walk through the store again, though. And the grandmother said, okay. And they walked through the store, and then Gila said, I want to walk through it again. And Gila spent a lot of time in the picnic supply section and the cooking section. And finally, she said she picked out a kind of thing that you'd use to serve cake, I think. Some sort of cake cutter server. And then a box of plastic knives for a picnic. I think 50 for 99 cents. And she goes, this is what I want. And the grandmother said, okay. And they went home, and then Gila said, whatever, the day went on. And Gila looked through the books, all of them, paging through them, looking at it, because she said, well, it looks like they're using something for this butter sculpture. She said, they do have sharp knives, but she said, whatever. So then the next day, Gila became obsessed with trying to cut stuff. First it was butter, but then that quickly... They said, okay, Gila, butter's not cost effective for you practicing carving on. Can we find something else? So then Gila tried making Play-Doh and modeling clay, two of the things that are Play-Doh that she could make, but she said, this is not the same. It's not a mix of the things I like is the sand sculpting. And so then Gila tried to collect dirt in the neighborhood. Obviously that didn't work. This was over the time, when the dark and stormy season was there. And she said, okay, no, that doesn't work. And then she eventually stumbled into fruits and vegetables, initially fruits, because I was and she said, apple's almost there, and then I can eat it afterwards if I wash my hands and my tools. But she said, it's not quite the same. It's not quite there. And then she tried other things, but again, she was trying to be conscientious of what she could do, because normally the maximum she could earn is $1 a day from her grandmother, and that was the only person. And then she discovered zucchini one day. Instead of going to the 99-cent store, she said, I want to go to the bodega that has the fruit out front. And she was going kind of constantly just buying one thing or testing it out because she just took responsibility for her own actions. She said, I'll pay for my own sculpting materials. And that's when she kind of discovered a zucchini, which was close, and it really let her, because it was on sale, but it couldn't be too on sale, obviously, because if it gets too soft. And that led her to cucumbers. Now, the problem with the cucumber was the inconsistency between the cucumber skin and the interior. But those were two things she spent a lot of time working with, but not a lot of sculpting, some shaping. She could make shapes and stuff like that. And it wasn't until someone came to visit, one of her uncles, and he said, come on, me and my mom and you are going to go out, and I want to join you on your journeys and stuff. And he said, you know what you don't want to have on a rainy day? What's one of the worst things you could have on a rainy day? And Gila said, ice cream, but I'll take it. And he said, okay, touche. Maybe you could get, he goes, pickles from a barrel. Just three family members eating pickles in the rain, but we'll eat them under the awning so we don't get actual rain on our pickles. And so they were there eating their pickles in the rain under an awning. And as soon as the first crunch hit Gila's mouth, she said, what? She goes, and then right then a cab was driving through a puddle, and she used her body to block all the pickles, all three pickles from so that all the water from the cab hitting the puddle hit her back. And she said, was that good for $1.07? And grandmother goes, there's actually no tax on pickles. I know what you're thinking. And you could get 2 pickles for $1 right now. And so she went and bought 2 more pickles. It finished her current pickle. And this is how she discovered the first part. The pickle was to become her, whatever you call it, canvas. And she would go back to the library and she learned to use a microfiche machine. She started learning all she could about sand sculpting and butter carving and butter sculpting, they call it, even though I guess, and actually she did learn that there was a delineation between the two in her opinion. Because she said, I guess you're sculpting marble, but she goes, it's not based on, this is using a tool to carve things away. You are creating a sculpture. So it's a process of creating a sculpture from butter. And she would always say, in my humble opinion, but the fact remains that it's not, whatever. She's like, I'm carving. Now, eventually school came, and her school happened to have shop class. And she had learned also this lesson over the dark and stormy season that she could ask for help, right? But so she asked the shop teacher, she said, is there like a class that I could take that's like on knife safety and like sharp item safety? And they said, yeah, well, we do have a class. We have the saws. Yeah, we we use some like whatever those called, the super sharp knives. We could I could come up with some sort of after school seminar and get some other kids involved. Because I've been starting to think about starting a whittling club. Would you want to take part? And Gila said, I would take part in the training. And I would also support your whittling or teaching of whittling. And I would probably take the class, but I would be using a pickle. And the teacher thought she was joking, but that she was, like a sort of a dry humor. And the teacher said, amazing, like, we'll get it done. So then they had a sharp edged item, safety class, and other kids signed up for it. And then they started a whittling club. And on the first day of whittling club, Gila showed up with pickles. And they sat down, and and the teacher said, Gila, that's enough. I think you're taking your joke far enough. We're going to start carving, and we're going to go through our first whittling lesson. And Gila said, I'll be whittling pickles. And the teacher said, really? And Gila said, yeah, really. I'm going to not use the sharpest items currently. Like, I'm going to use, she had kind of developed her own tools out of plastic, bought from 99-cent store, or picnic flatware, paring stuff, anything, 99-cent store base equipment. But she said, I'm also going to try to learn some of the finer things. And the teacher said, okay, sounds fair. It's a club. So, and I guess you're whittling a pickle. And Gila agreed because she knew that this teacher was an authority figure and volunteering their time, and she would get paid $1 from her grandmother later for it. But she, in her head, said, I'm carving pickles, but sculpting pickles, no, I'm carving pickles. She goes, I guess you're there's wood carvers and there's whittlers. She said, you could say I'm a pickle whittler. You could call me the pickle whittler, but this just sounds weird. But she knew in her heart she was a pickle carver, and never thought, honestly, until this point of the podcast that I'm telling the tale. This is why it's an untold tale. I said, oh boy, it's not meant to have any level of innuendo to it. But something about saying a pickle whittler, I don't know. But it's not. It's this whole story is I guess somehow I got in a story bog there. But so anyway, so Gila followed the kind of class progression, and this teacher was still kind of learning whittling too. So it was a lot of sticks with beards, and the closest thing they got was in the fall was a Santa Claus on a stick. And it was a little bit different for Gila because it was learning to do that on a pickle, but also at the time, a pickle was the kind of thing. And then Gila learned the power of this was the next progression was actually, this is another story within Gila's life, But there was a time, I think this was the Santa Claus one. She said, well, we don't celebrate Christmas. And and then someone that she had a crush on said something to her. So she left her pickle at her workstation, just went home because it was summer or winter break anyway. And, it was her first case of brokenheartedness, which when she got back, when no one knew, because the teacher was like, I can't wait to get out here either. This is my free time, that her pickle was still on her workstation. And she was usually the first one there because, I don't know, she liked to she learned a lot about, so the pickle had dried out, and it changed shape yet again. And so this became an obsession of hers, because she would put the pickles back in the jar, or she just never thought about leaving a sculpture out to dry, because she lived in an apartment, right? There wasn't a lot of places to leave pickles out to dry. So she would either say this sculpture is edible or not and just move on. And this was in the early days of composting. So she was bringing it to a compost center just so anybody's she's wasting pickles. No. And I think there was even, I don't know if pigs eat pickles, but I think maybe there was something where she was giving the pickles to somebody who could eat pickles and not have to worry about the fact they were handled by someone. I think it was a neighborhood pig or something, but that might have been in my imagination. But so anyway, this is the kind of thing, it wasn't it followed, this became her hobby. And she got better and better at it. And for a while, people would be no one else got, because it was different. Here's the thing, especially if you learn on wood, switching over to pickle, it's just not doable for most people. So even the kids in her class, they would try to carve pickles, but it was just, they were too, they didn't have the touch, the pickle touch. But Gila did. And so, and no one, at that point, these are kids hanging out after school whittling. It's not they became their own, they became friends. And, this wasn't Gila's only thing. But again, this was just this ongoing thing that this community dealt with at this time period, the dark and stormy season. And Gila still had a lot of dark and stormy seasons left. But, the drying of the pickle created this new thing. Now, it wasn't Gila's only form of expression. And in fact, it led to something new. But what happened was, all the kids would talk about how they gifted, after the holidays, she had her dried pickle. All the other kids talked about gifting their Santa Claus piece of wood to a family member. And who painted it or who did that. And Gila was just staring at her Santa Claus. And then one kid said, not only did they paint it, but they stuck it in a pot and put branches on it, and they sold it. Now it was at some part of their belief system's community thing, community sale or white elephant sale or something. But she said, wait a second, you sold that a stick that had a beard and a hat carved in it and a face? And I said, well, I painted it. And then I put the stick like it was a tree. And then I put pine branches on it that I found on the ground. Totally found them on the ground. Didn't tear them off any city park trees. I put some pine cones around it. Painted the pine cones green. And, I called it the Santa tree. And she said, interesting. And her heart did, beat to it. She said, this person's got it together. But she also was like, wait a second. I wonder if you could make money at this. Because also, even though this wasn't her hobby, she had a fire for her dream was to have an RV and travel by RV. And also to go to the Great New York State Fair. And so she started a hobby. At first, not totally, she had to do a lot of testing on how to properly dry a pickle, which I have no idea about, so don't ask me about it. I mean, I think eventually she stumbled, when it wasn't the dark and stormy season, on a solar oven, because I think that was another thing they did as part of one of the shop classes she started taking. which is like just some sort of metal thing you leave out and the sun, heats it up. And she could do that on her balcony. And she, would test out drying the pickles and stuff. And then she told, very supportive family, very supportive community with the library members. She started to find like the neighborhood art sale, which was quarterly. And she started selling her pickle art there. And then people said, what about, the pickles, not dried? And she said, well, they have to be in a jar with liquid. And they said, okay. So then she started making, this became very popular. Her best-selling item for a time, though it would go in and out, was she figured out a way with different liquids, not just pickle juice, but at first she sold stuff with pickle juice, but people were like, But then she started figuring out different density of liquids and putting lead weights inside the pickle, and she would sell these pickle fish that would be able to float in the liquid because of whatever the liquid and the weights, I don't know, dispersion or whatever the heck you call it. And she would call them aquariums or something, pickle aquarium, I think they were called. And I mean, this is the city. So then she started being able to sell these to shops, distinct shops that sold hip stuff. And she became known around this part of town, like a village type part of town, as a pickle artist. Though she said, I'm the pickle carver, and she would always they'd say, oh, this is Gila, as she started to get older and older or grow up, and so she started making money. She was always saving this money, and then everybody said, well, are you going to go to art school? And she said, no, I'm going to get an RV. I'm going to go to the Great New York State Fair. And they said, but what about art school? And she said, I think maybe one day, but right now I want to meet some butter sculpt. I want to figure out increasing my skill. And she was able to go to the New York State Fair before she had an RV. She saved up the money so that they could take the train to Syracuse and stay there. And, everybody decided, okay, well, why don't you just pay 10% of the trip and we'll pay 90%. And then she said, well, next year I want to set up my own thing and sell my pickle art at the Great New York State Fair. Because she met the butter sculpture winners, and she started to get, correspond with members of the butter sculpting community and kind of learn. And there was even this was before. So she got zines, and I think there was a list serve, rec.buttersculpture or something. But then the first year she did she managed to purchase an RV. And then this was another slight downturn, was that her first year at the Great New York State Fair, she rented an outdoor booth. It was a particular dark and stormy season, and people just walked by because they didn't understand. I don't know. It was just a different crowd. It was busy. And then she noticed towards the end of the Great New York State Fair, that she didn't have any motion or any music or anything, because she started to notice the places she tended towards. There were either a lot of people in line, or there was something flashy and moving, or the person was doing something. And she said, oh, interesting. And she also, that year, the butter sculpture was a history of the great musicians from the central New York area. And there was one person who played the clarinet, and she said, holy cow, I don't know, at some point, not at the New York State Fair, she said, as she was planning for the next one, she said, I got to come up with something. So she started to wonder, could I make instruments I could play or someone else could play at the Great New York State Fair? And she said, well, I should focus on my pickle carving. And so then she tried to figure out, and again, she lived in the big city still, so she could go to places and meet people that played woodwind instruments. meet instrument makers, and she started to slowly make her own playable instruments. The piccolo being the most famous one that she would grow great acclaim for. Because then what she would do is invite musicians that were probably already at the Great New York State Fair initially, because then she would tour fairs everywhere. You still may find her, Gila, the Pickle Carver, and they would play pickle-based instruments at her booth, and then obviously it would create a crowd. It got to the point where she was, being able to pay the musicians. She said, she would always joke, I can pay you in pickles. She didn't even realize that till right when she started just touring that she could sell her own pickles. She was like, wait a second, and she met someone, and they became, and then they had a romantic and a working relationship, living in the RV, touring around. It's not for everybody, but for the right person. So they would sell the pickles and pickle-related treats, and, the pickle art, and Gila would make the art or explain the art during the New York State Fair and stuff. But they would do the thing where Gila would, for at least a few hours a day, would be if there wasn't music, there'd be sculpting. And they created sculptures, non-pickle sculptures, to kind of make motion, like a pickle dryer, which was foot pumped, but it had a big wheel on the outside of the booth that's flashy, and, a bellows going up and down. So it just created more motion. But yeah, that's the tale of the Pickle Carver. Maybe a tale you've never heard before, but now you have, and you might be the sleepier for it. Good night, everybody. All right, I want to thank everybody that became a patron recently. I want to thank Sabisola, Rachel, and Cody. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. I want to thank Jenna, Kaylee, and John. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. I want to thank Will, Jacob, and Teresa. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. I want to thank Kate, Lucas, and Alexis. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. I want to thank Amy, Alexander, and Samantha. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. I want to thank DXB, Samantha D, that one, and Christina. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. I want to thank Sue, Alex, and Sierra. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. I want to thank Aaron, Adge, and KLJ. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. And then I want to thank Sarah, Ari, Marissa, and Tim. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. Thanks for everybody who supports the show. That's how we're able to come out free twice a week as people that support the show directly or support our sponsors. And, there's free ways to help the show. The best free ways, just spread the word about podcasting in general. If Sleep With Me comes up or sleep, that's fine. But the easiest way is to introduce people to a podcast app, or just talk in a general way about podcasting, and in a not, for some reason, I don't totally get. A lot of people, you could even say these audio shows I listen to on my phone and let them say podcast, and you say, oh yeah, use this app, tell them which app you use. Oh yeah, you get that in the store, totally free. Podcasts are free. And these are the podcasts within my interests that I listen to, or one or two of them. I don't know, you kind of got to plant the seed and then later sleep with me. So it's a free way to support the show and support everybody else who listens to podcasts, makes podcasts, and relies on podcasting to pay their bills and stuff. Growing podcasts benefits everybody. And there's more podcasts to listen to. So, do that. And here's either Tuck You In sponsor or me. That's how we grew all the extra free archives. Thanks. Hey, everybody, this is Scoots. Before we tuck you in, remember, if you listen all night long, you don't even have to hear this message. If you were a patron, you wouldn't be hearing this right now. A lot of people that were all-night listeners that converted to becoming a patron tell me how much they get out of it. So if you listen to the show on a regular basis, you listen to it all night long, or you just really love the podcast and you want to say, hey, I love the podcast. I get so much out of it. Scoots, let me give you something back. Sleepwithmepodcast.com/patron. 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 Thanks, everybody.